Matt Vaughn, welcome back to Tech Shorts.
It's great to be back.
There's a ton of stuff happened in PCS while I wasn't looking, and one of those things was Slurm Accounting.
Mm-hmm.
Why do customers care about Slurm Accounting? Like, what's the problem they're trying to solve with this?
So when you're running a Slurm scheduler, or actually any scheduler, the schedulers tend to care about the jobs that are in the queue now and the jobs that are running now. And they're constantly thinking, how do I decide what next? How do I decide what job to process next? How do I make best use of the cluster given all of the constraints at the time? Accounting basically gives your scheduler memory of what workloads have already run. And that memory can be used to factor in and help make scheduling and resource allocation decisions. And it turns out that unlocks a lot of really powerful behaviors.
So maybe Slurm is going to become self-aware.
Yeah, it would be, yes. Maybe Slurm will beat OpenAI to AGI.
To AGI. That'd be a cool idea. Wow. That'd be the ultimate.
Our lawyers are dying right now at me saying that. Or Sam.
So I guess it gives it memory, and I think one of the good things about it having memory is memory can also track things like individual users' consumption or the consumption of a queue, and then you could also use that to limit consumption, right? If you wanted to.
That's right. Okay, so basically, I like to think of accounting. There's two.
I don't like to think of accounting.
Well,
I try not to. Really?
I do, because we worked really hard on the feature, and it's really cool. And so I like to think of accounting in really two ways. So you can use it retrospectively, and that's like what you think of when you hear accounting. So you can look back on the historical data, and you can generate some reports and analytics. Like, this guy Hector has been really busy with the GPUs this month. We need to make sure that his department gets charged for the usage.
Right.
Or you can also pull up reports and see stuff like, oh wow, Mylan has been using less than half the memory available on her nodes. Maybe we could shift her to using different instances or job submit parameters, and that would save resources and save money, be more efficient. Maybe jobs would run faster, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the retrospective use case.
Pretty cool.
Pulling up reports, analytics. But you can also use it prospectively to set policy. So here's a couple of use cases. One is so Sarah's whole department runs tens of thousands of jobs a week. And we're really happy for them, but we need to make sure that they aren't preventing other users from getting their work done while we support her use case, and actually her whole department's use case. Another use case could be the jobs from the people, all the people in the jobs from all the people in the protein chemistry department get to have priority for jobs in the GPU queue over other departments, but anybody can submit there. So that's a pretty fine-grained set of decisions, and you can get that kind of behavior out of Slurm Accounting pretty easily.
Wow! So this is more than just a backdoor to being able to put, this is my budget. Yeah. This is all I can afford to spend on clusters this month. Mm-hmm. This is way more than that. This is much more sophisticated than that.
Absolutely. Cool. The actual the financial side of things is still a little challenging, but you can definitely fine-grain control the way that your clusters work, the way that the users and groups of users interact with the cluster to get the most out of it.
Right. Well, I mean, to sort of dispense with that sort of question already, the obvious question there is, how do you actually put a limit on consumption? I mean, the limits that would be imposed on consumption through Slurm Accounting would be instance hours or core hours kind of level of consumption limits, right? They're not going to be dollars.
That's right.
But given that most people have a fairly good understanding of what the dollars are per hour for the things that are supplying their queues, that's their node groups.
Precisely.
In PCS, that's not a hard bit of math to do. You can come up with a pretty good rule of thumb, and this queue needs to have no more than 100,000 instance hours per month.
Absolutely, you can do that.
Yeah.
If you start combining, and by the way, this is going to be a theme I mean, it's a general theme with Slurm. It's going to be a theme with PCS as we start talking about more and more features that we're bringing out. And when we bring them out, they behave the same way as on a vanilla Slurm cluster. But often you'll find that we've added some, subtle or not so subtle cloud native capabilities that let you do more sophisticated orchestrations. And those types of like downstream orchestrations and connections to your actual billing, connections to notifications. These are things that you can start to architect on top of a PCS cluster with these various features turned on, including Slurm Accounting.
Like I remember you and I working on a blog post ages ago where the exemplar we used was how to send alerts to your phone when something happened on your cluster. Like could have been a billing alert or any number of things, right? I think in that case it was a budget trigger, and it would send a push notification to your phone. Those things are pretty easy to do inside the AWS console because those services are there, right? And sending a text message or a push notification to a phone, you're probably going to do all that in the free tier, and it's going to cost you nothing. But those are like really pretty cool features to have. You could have those. You could have push notifications when somebody goes, gets close to their quota. Or when a group gets close to its quota, or they exceed their quota, or something like that, you could do all sorts of things there, right?
That's right.
And give you a much more responsive, kind of support for your teams. So given that, and all of that's possible, right? Because PCS is a service embedded in the AWS console, right? It's not a tool like Parallel Cluster was. It's a full-time service that's managed behind the scenes. How does the Slurm Accounting part of it work? Because Slurm Accounting needs a database, right?
That's right. First of all, Slurm Accounting in PCS works just like Slurm Accounting in any other Slurm cluster. There's a MySQL database. Slurm connects to it, stores the usage data, as well as the projects, accounts, policies, which Slurm calls quality of service. And when accounting is active, specific features in Slurm just start becoming available. Kind of use of the saccount command. Requiring the ability to require a user to specify an account when they submit a job. These things just kind of magically become available in Slurm. So that's lesson one: is that it works just like in any other Slurm cluster,
just like it does on the tin.
But so what's specific there is that it's managed for you. If you've ever set up Slurm Accounting either in your on-premises data center or in Parallel Cluster or some roll your own solution, you have to manage the database, you have to manage the connection, you are responsible for another piece of infrastructure.
And it's another piece of database infrastructure that needs to be redundant.
That's right.
You don't want to lose the data. All of that. Frankly, all that crap work that has to be done with some icky SQL database. Right?
Absolutely. Like all your business, honestly, the cluster is pretty indestructible. Even outside of PCS, you can knock Slurm cluster over, bring it back up again. It can survive a crash, etc. There's good durability and persistence. That's a different story if you managed to knock a self-hosted database over. You can corrupt. The tables can get corrupted, et cetera, et cetera. It's pretty annoying. So in PCS, it's managed for you. If you want accounting, you turn it on in the cluster manage. So in PCS, there are cluster queue and compute node group management panels. And the cluster management panel for your cluster, you turn on Slurm Accounting.
And this is just like a checkbox.
It's a checkbox. And if you don't want it anymore, you can turn it off.
See, that's kind of neat because all of that stuff that we were talking about before about setting up a SQL database, making sure it's redundant, making sure it's backed up, and all the other stuff. It's a separate skill set. Like I know a lot of people go and hack this stuff together on their head node. And that kind of works. But it works right up until it doesn't, and then they discover that they missed a few things when it doesn't. Checkbox is pretty neat. So what does Slurm Accounting track? Like, what are the metrics it's monitoring on the cluster? How's it measuring stuff?
So pretty much it tracks everything. The CPU hours, memory, GPU usage, wall time, and also some more fine-grained per job performance metrics. And by the way, unless you roll your own job, efficiency metrics monitoring system, Slurm Accounting is the only way to get that in a Slurm cluster. So it's very, very useful. Truth be told, most of the time when you're using a Slurm cluster, at your institution, company, etc., if you're using a Slurm cluster, it's running with Slurm Accounting turned on.
Right.
Because it's really powerful. It honestly should be a core part of Slurm, but the way that software has evolved, it's kind of almost a modular add-on.
Right. And the only difference for most end users is when they submit the job, they just have to supply an account code, as it were.
That's not mandatory. I mean, the operator for the cluster decides whether that's required.
Right.
Although I will say, it's a very common deployment pattern that if you're running with accounting, then as a matter of course, the operator requires that you specify an account.
Right, and that could be, but those accounting codes could be, this is the accounting code for the chemistry department, or this is the accounting code for the GPU team,
That's right.
or whatever. And I mean, it goes back to helping you later on assess who used what, when, and where, and what the limits are. Now, there's a lot of tools out there on the internet for doing stuff with Slurm accounting data as well.
Yeah.
Right. So this is pretty easy, where you could go and get Claude to write one for you.
Yes, you could. Or Q developer.
So how do you set quotas?
So I should probably explain just kind of high level what the primitives are for Slurm accounting. So Slurm accounting is kind of ordered around users, Matt, Boof, etc. Accounts, which we tend to think of as projects, but for some reason, SCEDMD and the community around Slurm calls them accounts.
Right.
So you have users and accounts.
Oh, damn.
They are not the same thing.
Damn.
So accounts are projects, and QoS, or quality of service. So users and accounts, those are used to assign ownership. So this job ran associated with this account. Because this user ran it. So that's the ownership part. But then the qualities of service. So what's a quality of service? It's kind of a weird name for policies, because that's what they really are. It's a policy that lets the operator define everything from priorities to resource limits, resource usage in a really granular way. And you can apply a quality of service cluster-wide, at the queue level, even at the level of individual groups of compute nodes. And I think a key takeaway for Slurm and Slurm accounting is that those qualities of service plus all of the Slurm custom settings, which PCS also supports, all of these things build combinatorially. So like Slurm accounting by itself is useful. Slurm accounting plus various settings combined together is even more useful. And you can get some really, really sophisticated behaviors out of it. This is why Slurm is so popular as a scheduler.
Right. So you could then have, say, an accounting code, or what do they call them? Just an account.
An account.
Account, which has got a QoS attached to it.
Right.
With that's a policy. And I'm doing the translation here on the fly.
Yeah.
You then have essentially a policy or a QoS, which specifies, say, 100,000 core hours per month, or in some accounting period, right?
Yeah, so they don't tend to. So I will say this is a common misperception. Slurm and Slurm accounting don't tend to think of hours in a month. To have that kind of implementation, you really have to build or adopt some kind of resource banking framework, which you can do. But that's not really baked into Slurm accounting. What Slurm accounting is still very much focused on the, here and now. What are you allowed to do now? You can still set up a quota but it's more of an integral of the number of jobs that you run versus the number of hours that you want to spend. If you really want job banking and debiting against a certain number of hours, you have to have a third-party solution.
So how do customers take this for a walk if they want to? I mean, I guess if they've got a cluster already in PCS, they just go and switch that. They can turn on that checkbox.
Yeah, so you turn it on, and there's also, so you turn on the checkbox, and then there's another setting which is retention time. You can decide how long you want to retain your job records. And by the way, this is important because so Slurm Accounting is a paid feature.
Right.
It's a very nominal fee, but we essentially do charge a small amount for the database infrastructure and for the persistent storage.
Sure. So you have to turn it on. You have to decide how long you want to keep your records for. That could actually be an important thing depending on, like, if you're in a regulated industry, you may have data retention policies that you have to meet.
Correct.
For compliance reasons, of course.
Yeah, and I think we default to I don't remember what we default to. It's either, I think it's 30 days, but right. you can retain all the way whatever the maximum is.
But realistically,
I think it's 10,000 days.
This is not a ton of data, so you'd probably want to keep it for quite a while so that you can get some interesting analytics out of it.
It's not a ton of data, and it's not a ton of spend. It really isn't. It basically maps to a it's pretty cost following to say S3 storage for the requisite amount of data.
Yeah, right.
That's not how it. Not saying that's how it's implemented, but it's pretty inexpensive.
Right. So, and it's all happening magically behind the control plane, which is really cool. And maybe to get hold of this, like if people watching this have never tried PCS before and they want to try this stuff out, how do they do that?
Oh, this is easy. If you want to try out Slurm Accounting, if you've never tried PCS, and if you've never tried PCS and you'd like to try Slurm Accounting, you can go to the PCS console, and right on the landing page, if you don't have any clusters, there are two buttons. One is create cluster. The other is create an example cluster. You want to choose the other one, create an example cluster. That will take you to a CloudFormation console with a pre-populated template that will stand up a fully working auto-scaling cluster. And while you're doing that, you can select to enable accounting. And that is it.
And I'm going to bet that has something to do with the AWS HPC recipe library, right?
It absolutely does. That template is actually backed by the Getting Started recipe in the HPC recipes library. So
brilliant. All right, Matt, thanks for coming in.
Of course. My pleasure.
See you soon.
If you enjoyed this tech short, please give us a like and consider subscribing to the channel. If there's a topic you want us to focus on, reach out to us at askhpc@amazon.com. We want to make it easier for scientists and engineers to solve the world's hardest problems. We think the cloud can help by giving them access to powerful tools of any shape and size whenever they need them. And that's where you come in. Let us know what you need. We'll see you next time.